Welcome to Money Conversations with KJ. KJ is a lifelong entrepreneur who's made a lot of money, lost a lot of money, and found his way back again. If you're looking for a sterile how-to, you're in the wrong place. KJ and his guests will walk you through real-life situations told by the people who live them, and they are as messy as they are inspiring. Each episode will offer lessons learned, advice on how to replicate successes and avoid pitfalls, and a new perspective to power your financial literacy. Far from a one-size-fits-all, this podcast can help you build a roadmap to your personal promised land. Milk and honey for some, whiskey and steak for others, and remind you that you're not alone on this journey.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show, Money Conversations with KJ. I am your host, KJ. Today, I have a guest on, Anabel Carrillo, local here in Las Vegas. And we're going to get into Anna's story. I don't know a lot of your story. We met through a mutual friend. But, you know, all stories are great. All stories are different. And we're going to dig in. And hopefully we're going to be able to help some of the audience members out there. We're going to get some aha moments, some good golden nuggets, I like to say. So, Anna, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, Anna, let's get into the story, your story. And again, today we're talking about money. And it's funny how money conversations are difficult for some people. For two reasons, I find. Some people don't want to talk about money because they don't have any, and maybe they're a little embarrassed that they don't have any. And other people don't want to talk about money because they have a lot of money and they don't want to talk about it because you're embarrassed either way, right? So it's weird when you have money conversations that you don't know where somebody is on the other side of the equation, of the conversation here. So, and I'm not going to ask you what you have or don't have personally. What I want to find out that we can help the audience with is your journey, when it started. So if you could think back as far as you can, like when did you realize money was something that you needed/wanted?
I mean, it does start pretty early, and I have some very definitive points of when I learned about money and then when I learned how to use money or how it could affect me. But I guess when I first learned about money, I would have been about 9 or 10. My grandmother, she's passed away now, but she was a vendor in Mexico. She used to sell food and she used to sell shoes and all kinds of stuff to get by to help her family out. And then when she moved over here, she started working at flea markets and selling shoes, and she would take on like events at Cashman Field or Freedom Park. Whenever there was a big event, she would be a vendor at the events and she would sell food at those events. And my parents and her, they wanted to teach me about working. So they would send me to work with her at the events when I was like 9 or 10, and I started getting money. And then as soon as I started getting it, I started realizing the power of being able to use it and buy things that I wanted and not having to ask anybody for the things that I wanted. I just could do whatever I wanted as long as I worked and got money. And I think another big thing that happened at that time, as I was starting to learn the value of money, I took, like, he should have given me a 20 to school, and I don't know if someone stole it or I dropped it out of my pocket, but I lost it. And then I realized, you gotta take care of these things, otherwise you lose them and they go away, and all the work that you did to get it is now for nothing. So between those two experiences, working with my grandmother at events and flea markets, and the first time I lost my money, that's when I started to understand that it had a value. That's
real interesting. You know, it triggers my mind that, and I believe this for a lot of parents, and I think really in the Latin culture, teaches work ethic first, right? So for you to go to help your grandmother at these events, it seems to me like your parents were trying to get you to learn a work ethic. Now, let me ask you, and this is 9 years old, which is great. Let's learn a work ethic early in life because it will help you. You know, now in your mid-30s, like you have a great work ethic, and without realizing it, it probably started then because that's what they instilled in you. Now, that being said, you learned the power of you worked however long you did for that $20. But at 9 years old, $20 is a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, it would be really deflating to understand, man, I just worked, 2 full days or whatever it was for my 20 and I lost it, or however it was gone, right? And so you realize, man, I have to take care of it. And this is such a valuable lesson. I'm glad you learned it at that age, which we know now. I mean, $20 is not the end of the world, but you'd be surprised how many people learn that lesson later in life and cost them thousands of dollars. It's sad, actually. So awesome that you learned that lesson. Now, my next question is going to be, at what point in time, if or ever, was it either your grandmother or your parents or both or anybody actually sit you down and talk about money, the value, and what you should do with it?
I want to say never. I got okay. The only information I ever had about money was very, very basic. So, and it's slightly incorrect. So the information I got from my mom, I want to say around the same time, is don't spend more than you have, and credit cards are bad. There was no explanation as to why credit cards were bad or what that meant, and there was no educating me on saving is good, you need to save money. Like, I had no concept of that. So it got me pretty far, because I know a lot of people very early on get credit cards and they get themselves in trouble because they don't understand how credit cards work. So I never did that.
How old do you think you realized that lesson? How old do you think you were?
I was 27 when I learned.
Wow. So, I mean, from learning good work ethic, learning that you work hard for money at 9, 10 years old, you're talking 17 years that you went through life believing, right? This is all a mindset. This is a belief system that we all have as we're, from adolescence to teenage years to young adult years, is I've got to go trade time for money, and then I take my money and do what I want with it, right? Rather than understanding, you had said something a minute ago that they described like credit cards are bad. Oh, I hear that phrase all the time. And it kills me when I hear that phrase, because my rebuttal to that phrase is this. One, a credit card is a piece of plastic. Now, a piece of plastic could be your bottled water, could be your credit card, all kinds of things that are sitting around you. They are not bad. It's the people who misuse them that are bad, right? And so you probably understand that at this point. But when someone told you that at a young age, it scares people. It scares people like, oh my gosh, don't get credit cards or be careful. I'm like, no, that's not the lesson to be learned. Credit cards can be extremely valuable used correctly, right? We need to be responsible with them, number one.
Yeah.
So at what age did you get your first credit card?
27.
Oh, okay.
Well, so I will say this: if you're not going to get any kind of education, telling someone don't get a credit card, period, is better than nothing. So when I was in college, I want to say 19. There was a vendor right outside of our dorms, and he had boxes and boxes of pizza. And when you're in college, pizza that's it. That's what you're going to eat. You're going to eat pizza over and over and over again, so you don't have any money.
Right.
So the vendor knew to target 19-year-olds that don't have any concept of anything. He had credit card applications on the table, and he said, if you fill this application out, you're going to get pizza. And everybody in my college dorm filled out that application and walked away with the pizza. A week down the road, they got a credit card in the mail. All I remembered is don't use a credit card. So I filled out the application with incorrect information, and they didn't have any way of knowing. So I never got the credit card.
But you got a pizza.
And I knew not to get the credit card. Again, I didn't know why, but it did help me, because I know by the time we got out of college, my roommate, Daphne, was in tons of debt. And I was not, because I had never gotten a credit card. And all I knew to do was work, spend the money, and then, I hadn't built credit, I hadn't done anything, but at least I didn't start in the negative.
Right.
So it's better than nothing. Up until this date, my mom still does not have a credit card. So nobody ever taught her otherwise. And what information was she really going to give me? I mean, she still doesn't know that that's not the full story.
It's interesting you said that also, that your mom still at this point doesn't have one. And, I have a phrase, and the people who listen to my podcast, you're going to hear it again. Listen, I know now, and I really believe, listen, parents can't teach what parents don't know. And if your
Right.
parents don't know financial literacy and they don't know really about money, how can they teach you, right? So now you are like millions of other people at 19 and 20 or whatever that went to college that their parents didn't teach them, and it's not a bad thing. Again, parents can't teach what parents don't know. You were just trying to figure it out. First, you were focused on your studies, whatever those were, and you kept your basics, which is stay out of debt. Credit cards are bad, and that got you through that. Got you a free pizza one day, which is awesome, right? That's cool. And then you just watched your friends get in what we know today is the largest debt out. Well, school debts and then credit card debt after that. Largest debt. There's so much debt because people get a credit card and they believe, I'll just use an example. Let's say you got a credit card with $1,000 limit. People believe that someone just gave you $1,000 and you can go spend it. It's no big deal. Where that's not what a credit card is for, right? And so, unfortunately, people have to learn hard lessons over time. And it's typically between the age you were mentioning, between, I find through conversation, 27 and 30 years old, usually around 30, people look back at what they've done for like the last 10 years, around the early 30s, and they see themselves, right? Because we can always connect the dots going backwards. We can't connect them going forward. So they're like, well, no wonder I was bad with money. Look what I did. I got myself in credit card debt at such an early age through college or whatever, buying, whatever they spent their money on. It's irrelevant what you spend your money on when you go in debt, because when you're in debt, you're in debt. Now you got to figure out, oh, holy crap, I got to pay this off somehow, right? So interesting story through college like that, but you had the wherewithal just from one early lesson that credit cards are bad, stay out of debt. And that's probably helped you in your life so far, hasn't it?
Big time. But the student loan thing, I'm in tons of student debt. I have a bachelor's degree, I have a teaching degree, 2 master's degrees, and I went to law school for a little bit, dropped out. That's what put me in debt, law school. So I do have student loan debt. I just didn't take on any, I don't have any car payments, I don't have a credit card debt, I don't have any other kind of debt other than that and my mortgage.
Okay. So, and again, that's the country's biggest debt is school debt. And I don't want to go down that political path of what, the president wants to do and eliminating all that stuff. And if they do, great for all you guys, because that just that gets you back at zero and you can only go, up from zero, right? Awesome. So, At what age do you remember, because there's so many things tied to money, did you start making money goals? Like what you're going to do with when you were making money? Because I'm sure you had whatever types of jobs going through college, right? Or after you had all these, whatever they were, part-time or whatever they were. What types of things were you doing with your money? So today you're sharing with us that you really don't have any debt. What kind of things were you doing with your money?
Up until 27, I was making it and spending it, or making it and spending it for whatever I wanted to, or, groceries and regular bills, or to pay off. Eventually, I realized I was getting into too much school debt. So I did start using some of my money to put into school to continue my education. At 27 is where things changed for me because of a very specific thing that happened.
Is that something you could share or no?
Yeah, sure. So I had gone, like I said, got my bachelor's degree, went to law school, dropped out, went to counseling school. And my intention was to become a college counselor because I wanted to help kids get in college. I got my degree in Los Angeles at Loyola Marymount University. So I came over to Las Vegas because I'm from here and my family's here. So it was I didn't have anywhere to live at the time, so it was easier to move back into my parents' house while I found work. But instead of finding work as a counselor in a college campus, I found work at a nonprofit as a financial counselor. I, to this day, don't fully understand why they hired me. I was qualified academically and, I was smart, but I didn't know anything about finances, nothing, zero. Other than what I told you, don't get into debt.
Right.
So they liked me, they hired me. It was called the Financial Guidance Center at the time. And they had some basic information. They sat me in an office and they started throwing clients at me. And clients would come in with these huge, long lists, enormous list of credit card debt. And it was my job to counsel them through the credit card debt. And I think the that just really bothered me, that stuck with me, that I'm going to remember to this day is I had it was a younger mom. She was a single mom, and she worked as a waitress at one of the station's casinos. And she was doing pretty good, make good tips, good money. But first of all, anything in the service industry tends to be inconsistent. Sometimes you make great tips, sometimes you don't. So you really can't rely on making that same income all the time, which people don't tend to think about. So one of the worst, she had a lot of credit cards, but one of the ones that really bothered me was a Victoria's Secret credit card. And she told me that one had been last used and maxed out because her young girl had started developing and she wanted to buy her daughter underwear. And she said to her daughter, go crazy, buy whatever you want. Here's my card. So, of course, the daughter goes and buys the most glittery, glammed up bra in the store. We're talking about like a 13-year-old buying a $50 bra.
Wow.
That's like slap me in the face. Like, this is what people are doing. People are putting themselves in debt for something that's completely unnecessary. I don't even want, like, if I was a parent, I wouldn't even want my kid to wear that. You know what I mean? Let alone put me in debt to buy something like that. You could have gone to Walmart and bought her what she needed. You know what I mean? So I saw that and I realized, so what happens is, that's when it hit me. What happens is all these people are putting themselves in debt for things they don't need, and then they can't do really important things that they do need, like buy a house and buy a car and have good credit in general. And then they come to me and like, I don't know anything. I'm just using, like, it seemed like common sense at that point. People are in trouble.
That is such an awesome story, because what we're doing here is almost parallel to what you did, because you learned financial literacy by seeing what other people have done, basically incorrectly, right? Knowing that, like, you already knew that you were never going to do that, but they put you in a position that you could give advice and help people get out of debt and that kind of stuff. But seeing those stories, right? And I've sat at tables with just hundreds and hundreds of people and have witnessed and saw those same things, and you shake your head. You're like, why did you do these things, right? But the reality is, why that young mom did that is because no one ever taught her any other way. And here's the problem. So you explain how she gave that Victoria's Secret card to her 13-year-old and said, hey, go spend what you want. Do you know? So think about that 13-year-old. Fast forward when she's 17, 18, 19. What is she? Her mindset has already been preset to spend other people's money, right? A credit card. That's a horrible lesson to teach a 13-year-old. Her mom didn't look at it as a lesson, though. Her mom looked at it as, I've got a card that has X amount available and my child needs, right? What she needed, a bra. You and I both know she didn't need a Victoria's Secret bra. Like you said, she could have went to Walmart or whatever, right? So she did two things that hurt her. She put herself in deeper debt, which is bad. But I believe the worst thing that she did was the lesson that she subconsciously, between her and her daughter, learned. That's a very horrible lesson. I would love to know where that 13-year-old is today, mindset-wise, with money, right? Probably in trouble, I would believe.
Here's another problem with that. We're talking about bras, but it could be anything.
Right.
So the first thing you get of a car, a bra, a pair of shoes, the first thing you get is probably going to be your standard. So if your standard starts at a $50 bra, you're only going to want better. You're not going to want worse. So to maintain that standard, if it's out of your means, you're just literally always going to be broke. The next thing that you buy you're 13, the next big purchase, a car. If your standard is the expensive car and you can't stand to buy a crappy car, you're always going to have to shop outside of your means. You're never going to be able to get caught up. That's another good thing that I will say about my parents. They didn't buy me expensive things as a kid. They bought me what they could afford because they were poor, and I got used to, this is what I have. If I need thrifted clothes, I'll wear used clothes. If I, can afford to live in an apartment and not a beautiful house, I'll live in the apartment. I'll live where I have to. I'll do what I have to meet my basic needs, but I'm not trying to live way above. I don't need anything fancy. And that's kind of still true today, which is really helpful because it helps you stay within your means.
So that's a mindset and a belief system, right? And I believe that this is where financial literacy starts. It must start. And depending whether you're starting at a young age of 10, 12, 13 or whatever, or you're not figuring out money until your late 20s or early 30s, it still has to come down. It's a mindset and a belief system. And that's why I'm saying that story with that 13-year-old, she shaped her mindset and belief system so early in the wrong direction that, man, that would be interesting to see where she is today. I have a course that I have out there that I teach people, and my very first module out of 11 modules is the mindset, because until we get our mindset correctly about money, 99 out of 100 people will get it wrong, and they don't understand the difference between wants and needs, right? That 13-year-old needed a bra, but she wanted the Victoria's Secret, but she didn't need the Victoria's Secret, right? She needed to go down and get your basic, I have 3 daughters. I can't even remember what bras cost anymore, but not 50, probably a $10, $12 whatever bra, right? So the mindset that should be taught early, and if you don't get it early, which is okay, because as we talk, parents can't teach what parents don't know, is then you need to make a mindset shift. And this is really difficult when we get older. Maybe at 27, the light bulb went off for you because of this scenario that was in front of you, that, oh man, I need to make a shift. I need to make sure that I'm understanding what money, the value of money, what it's for, and the detriment that debt can do to us. Now, that being said, we're talking about debt here for a few minutes, and I want the audience to understand, I'm not saying that all debt is bad debt, because there are actually 2 kinds of debt. There is bad debt and there's good debt. And so when I teach it, I explain to people, bad debt is what we call consumer debt. When you get in debt for something that doesn't make you money, that's bad debt. Good debt,
Yes.
Good debt, like real estate, right, is good debt, because real estate's going to, appreciate in value. So if you go in debt to buy some sort of a house or a condo or something, I'm okay with that debt. You can even be okay with short-term good debt. And I've done this because I flip houses also for a living, and a lot of times I'll use my credit cards short-term. I know that I'm going to be in this project on average on 4 to 6 months. I kind of lost you there for a minute. Oh, there you go. I'll go in debt for 4 to 6 months on a flip, and I'll use my credit cards to go purchase whatever materials. And let's say I spend $10,000 in credit cards to go buy XYZ materials, and then I sell this flip, and then I pay those credit cards off. So that's short-term good debt, because by me leveraging a credit card to buy materials for a property that I know I'm going to just turn around and sell as soon as I'm finished, and then pay my debt off, I'm okay with that debt. But long-term debt that doesn't make you money is really difficult to get out of that type of debt. And then this is where people go to bankruptcy and all that kind of stuff, right? Great.
Yes, and as soon as you hit real estate, you got where it hurts, because I'm a special education teacher and a real estate agent. So that's definitely, I love talking about real estate. But with the short-term flips and all of that, I know that there's a lot of information out there. And I think before people get into that kind of debt, they need to be very educated about the decision they're doing and realize that it's not easy to do any of this. It's doable, and I encourage it, but it is something that you have to, it's a business. You have to think about what you're doing before you jump in too aggressively.
Well, plus, you need to have done well with your money to qualify to buy any type of, property anyway. So, man, all of a sudden, I'm lost a little. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. The reason I got knocked out for a second is because it is on my phone, and a phone call came through. And I came up as quick as I could, but it'll do that, unfortunately, because I'm on my phone.
Right. Let's see here. Oh. I'm just going to get out of this and try to just get back live with you real quick. I think, so the thing with money that I like to teach is, making sure you understand debt. Debt's huge. That's one of the biggest problems we have in the country, as we talked about. But I think when people can make a mindset shift and understand that when you start being very goal-oriented, you will keep yourself out of trouble. And the problem is most people don't set financial goals, right? You go to work, you make your money, you get paid, whether it's weekly or bi-weekly or however you get paid, and you decide, well, I want XYZ, and you go spend your money, right? So in that case, I think that if you have goals, whatever they may be, and we all need to have goals, and you have a path to your goal, that you will keep yourself out of financial burdens, right? You won't get yourself into debt because your goal, let's just say your goal is to buy a house and you need, $10,000 as a down payment. Well, instead of going out there and spending money on your wants, you need to save your money for your down payment. You're not going to go spend your money on frivolous stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's actually exactly what happened to me.
Man, I'm just still, I lost you on Zoom, but I hear you loud and clear. I'm just trying to get back to it. But
is the video not? Should I try my iPad? Would that work?
No, it's definitely not on your side. It's on my side.
Okay.
I pushed the wrong button, unfortunately. That's okay. I'll get back here in a second. So when I teach the people about financial literacy, it's definitely a mindset shift first. Then I say you must learn how to be very goal oriented. And I treat goals kind of like most cars today have GPS. So like, let's say you go travel to some city in your car and you need to get to a destination. Most likely you're going to plug it into your GPS, right? Because otherwise you're going to drive through streets you don't need to drive through. And we should treat our financial goals the same way. We should map out whether it's a down payment for a house, a vacation, I got to save because I want to buy a new car in 2 years. Whatever these goals are that we need, retirement, right? Not enough people, especially before the age of 30, think about retirement. How much about retirement have you thought about?
I have not as much as I'd like to, but recently I opened up a 401b. It's like a 401k, but because teaching is a public service job, it's 401b. 401b, and I am in the works to pay off. I have a rental. I had two. I sold one to pay off the other one. I'm trying to pay that one all the way down because that is where I'm going to continue to get, once it's paid off, a little bit of my retirement. And slowly, I plan on transitioning all the way into real estate. So my plan for my retirement is I'm going to work 10 years as a teacher, get my pension that way, pay into my 401b, and have my rental and potentially buy one more.
Perfect. So real estate's great. One of the things I teach about retirement, and retirement's a funny word. I don't even really like that word, to be honest with you. I think once people learn financial literacy correctly, and the first thing we need, there's three pillars to financial literacy to achieve. And the first one is to be financially secure, which means that you have enough money put aside for that 3 to 6 months in case last year, like COVID happened, a lot of people lost their job because of that. Sometimes we just lose your jobs for reasons that are no fault of your own. But even if you lose your job, your bills don't stop, right? The power still has to stay on, the water, your phone, all these things still need to be paid. And so if you put yourself in the position of being financially secure and have them put away 3 to 6 months, 6 months better, if in fact you get laid off, you get sick, or the economy causes you to lose your job, you're not going to go home and freak out. If you're living check to check, you would go home and freak out because you're like, holy crap, how am I going to pay the rent, right? If you're financially secure, you're like, okay, let's not panic here. I've got money put aside to pay my bills while I go to, I call it plan B. What am I going to do, right? You're not going to sit around. You're going to go figure out what your plan B is to earn income. So once you've established that, and a lot of times that's not easy, and it could take years for a lot of people, because I use an example of, say, $3,000 per month. If your bills are $3,000 per month, all in, and you lost your job, and 6 months worth of bills is $18,000, you need to have $18,000 put aside into an account that you can access immediately to be able to pay your bills. Well, $18,000 is a chunk of money for almost anybody. And it could take you a couple, 2-3 years to actually accumulate that money and put it aside in the highest interest yield account that you could find, which they're not very high ones anyway. But my point is having it accessible to you when you need it. Versus, again, if you lost your job or whatever happened and you don't have money put away, you're going to panic. The second one would be to become financially independent. And what you just described, what you're doing, is getting you closer to that path. Financially independent means when your money makes enough money to supply your lifestyle. Now, this number is different for everybody, right? Because everybody wants to live differently. Some people are happy to live on $3,000 a month. Other people are happy. They say, no, man, I need at least $10,000 a month, right? And to some people, that may sound absurd, but if that's the lifestyle they're used to, that's the lifestyle they're used to. So it's your job now to whatever you believe your lifestyle is. I need to have my money make $X. How am I going to do that? And you just described, you can do it through rentals, right? You would say, okay, well, I have a rental and it cash flows me $500 a month. How many do I need for $3,000 a month lifestyle? I need 6. So, okay, over the next 10, 15 years, I need to get 6 of them to do that. Then I would be financially independent. That doesn't mean that you stop working, because you don't have to. You just get to work on your terms. And there's nothing better than working on your own terms. Would you agree?
Oh, no, absolutely.
Yeah. And then there's the final goal to strive for would be financial freedom. And I hear that word. When you got that position, did they talk to you about teach people how to get to financial freedom? Was that a word that you used a lot?
You mean when I was working at the financial guidance?
Yes.
Center,
Yes.
Yes. Well, that was a goal for all of those people. It was to go on payment plans and get to financial freedom. Yes.
Yes. And financial freedom, the true meaning of it means when you have enough money, it's typically at least 7 figures, often 8 figures in today's world. When you have enough money to go and do anything with anyone, anywhere. So let's say, hey, I want to take the whole family to Europe on a 30-day vacation, and that's going to cost me $100,000, right? You're like, okay, well, I'm financially free. I have $10 million. $100,000 isn't going to hurt you, right? So financially free is a very large term. Not a lot of people achieve that goal, and you don't necessarily have to achieve to be totally financially free. Financial independence is a much stronger one. And then just as your money makes enough money to supply your lifestyle, any other money after that, I call gravy anyway, right? You can just start accumulating more and more and more. But understanding at your age, and probably when you're at 27, had you learned the rule of 72, compounding?
No. Had I learned it at 27? No, I started to learn about finances at that point. I didn't know anything before that point other than don't spend more than you have.
Yeah, so I love the lesson, the rule of 72, how compound interest works, because I really believe that once you understand compounding and how it works, Albert Einstein says it was the 8th wonder of the world. How does this actually happen? But compounding is our friend. Compounding teaches us how money doubles based on the interest rate that we're going to receive on it and or pay, because we're either paying interest on our money or receiving interest on our money. And typically we pay a lot more interest than we earn. So like credit cards, right? If you don't have good credit, you get a credit card that they're going to charge you upwards of 24% interest, right? Mm-hmm. If you have good credit, even with good credit, to get a credit card below 5% interest is fairly difficult. I think that if once you learn how to grow money, how I like the phrase make money, there's nothing more powerful than that, because making money make money works 24/7 365. You and I don't, nor do we want to, right? I don't want to work 24 hours a day. We can't anyway. We have to sleep, and you want to spend time with family and loved ones. So once you learn the lesson that the rule of 72, and the reason they call it the rule of 72 is we divide the percentage rate that you're receiving. Let's say you got money in a savings account and they tell you, hey, we're going to pay you 1% on your money. And you're like, okay, well, let's say you put $10,000 in that account. It would take 72 years for that account to go from 10,000 to 20,000, for it to double up. Now, that's not too exciting, is it? And 72 years is basically a lifetime. Are you still there? Oh, did I lose you? Annabelle? I don't know. Let me resend it again, and we'll just resume from there. I'll send you another link. Okay, bye. Yeah. Send another one. Kick this off. I need you to send her another one, and then I'll go on Zoom and open it up again.
There we go. That's
Perfect. So let's pick up where we left off was where you were talking about how you opened up your 403B.
Okay.
Okay, so you opened up your 403B because you're in education. Talk to me about what got you to open that up. Where did you learn about that?
I don't know. I just knew that most people have a 401k, and I got curious about it because I'm in my 30s and it seemed important. I knew that I had a pension, and I knew that a lot of teachers were kind of basing their retirement on their pension. And I was curious to see how much it went up per year, because basically with us, the longer you're in, the more percentage you're going to get at the end of your career.
Right.
So I kind of asked, I went and I asked someone in the school district about what the increase was per year once I became vested. And it was like very, very small. It's like 2% per year increase with a salary that's not that high to begin with as a teacher. So then I thought, oh yeah, this isn't going to be enough. I have to find another way, which is why I opened the 401b. So I guess what led me to open the 401b was knowing that my pension was not as adequate as I had hoped for.
Very kudos to you to being proactive and thinking about that. In the last couple of years is when you did this?
Yeah, that was very, very recently. Before that, my only plan was to have a pension and rental property.
Okay.
But then it also seemed like you should have a 401b because, I mean, if you use it, great. And if you don't, then you didn't use it. But how do I say, like, the money or that opportunity is just going to go away. The younger you start using it, the sooner you could take advantage of those kind of income vehicles. But if you don't use them, they just go away.
Right.
It doesn't hurt you. And well, and another thing is it's a way to defer taxes, right?
Right.
So as you start making more money, this is one way to defer it, which also helps me presently.
Right.
So I started thinking about all those things and I got it. But before that, it was strictly rentals and maybe my pension.
Do you think if you would have educated yourself about your retirement in your early 20s, where do you think you'd be now?
Well, I would have opened up 401b sooner. Much sooner.
So there's a lot of other accounts that we can open up, and most of them are tax deferred, right? We want to save on taxes and worry about at a later age the tax burden that will happen later. That's a double-edged sword. One, we don't know the future, and we don't know what the tax burden will be, right? So for me personally, I'm more about the Roth IRA, which works in my favor on many different levels, and especially, I'll just go briefly with you over it because I know you have a rental property, and how it can benefit you in the long run. The Roth IRA is also contributed with, but its contributions are with after-tax dollars, meaning after you cash your paycheck, then you contribute to that account. Versus your 401(b) and most of the other regular IRAs and everything else, they come right out of your check, and your custodian, handles it from there. for me, knowing that I don't know what the future holds or what the tax burden may be, we know at one point in time, the highest tax rate in this country was like 90%. Like the wealthy was literally paying a 90% tax, which is crazy, right? Who wants to give 90 cents out of every dollar to the tax man? Nobody. But even currently, if you're making over roughly a little over 500,000, depending if you're single or married, you're going to be in the highest tax bracket, which is getting ready to go back up to the 39%, which is still a lot of money. So we need to find vehicles where we can tax defer and or save money on taxes through other deductions, right? Because as a W-2 earner, right, that you are and most Americans are, W-2 earners pay the most tax of anybody else, right? The person who pays the least amount of tax are the business people, and out of the business people, real estate. Real estate investors pay the least amount of taxes. We have the most deductions available to us than any other business out there. Did you know that?
I didn't know that. I didn't know we had the most out of anybody. I just know we do have deductions. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
we have the most. It's almost like, to me, when I study the taxes so much, it feels like, man, they wrote that tax code specifically for real estate investors, because real estate's one of the largest vehicles we can use to make money. People become ultra wealthy either through real estate or the stock market or a combination of both, right? And so you're both, and most people will do both if you're going to own properties, and then you have a 401(b), which is tied to the stock market, right? So how's the market doing is how your 401(b) will perform. So kudos to you to think about that. But when I teach financial literacy to people and I get them to understand nothing makes more money than money, you cannot trade time for money and expect to become wealthy. It's not going to happen. You must invest your way to wealth. It's the only way. Warren Buffett says, until you learn how to make money while you sleep, you will work till you die. Right? So it's just that vital important. And since the rule of 72 teaches us time is our most valuable asset, we want our money to double as fast as possible. And compounding is really interesting how it works very slow. It has to get momentum in the beginning. If you start investing in your 20s, by the time, it usually takes about 30, 35 years. By the time you're in your mid 50s, if you contributed correctly, which is not a lot, a couple, $300-$400 a month, you would have multi-millions of dollars. But if you start later, maybe at your age in your mid 30s, it takes a lot longer. I have a friend of mine who started early. We had this conversation just last week. He's telling me now he's got multiple millions growing right now. And he says, Kev, my compounding is unbelievable. I'm making literally thousands a month. I go, well, you got like $4.5 million working. Of course, compounding's working in your favor over time. But when the person who just gets started has 1,000 or 2,000 and you're looking at your returns at, hopefully you're trying to get between 8 and 10 or 12%, you're like, well, $1,000 I made, 80 cents or something, right? And it's like big deal, 80 cents, right? It doesn't really go in effects till later, but the sooner you start, the better. I highly always recommend for the young people that I speak to, man, just start investing your money as soon as possible. Investing is compounding. Compounding's our friend, because you do not want to trade time for money and realize at 40, 50, or 60 years old, now time's not on my side for my money to compound enough for me to make enough money. But I'm glad that probably your surroundings got you to think, man, I got to start thinking about retirement. And it's funny, it's that age, 30 to 35 is when people start thinking, man, I need to have money later. How am I going to do this?
Well, but it was also kind of my surroundings led me to real estate and not investing in that kind of way, because my father and mom, they bought rental property and that's what they're using. So I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't mimic what they were doing on purpose, but I think unconsciously I saw that and I bought my first property. And then when I decided to buy my second property, I didn't think immediately sell this one. I thought, oh, well, I can rent it and that'll do me some good. So I guess it took me this long to realize that I should have another way, because I never saw it. My parents still don't use that form of, they rent. That's what they do. They bought properties and they rent them out. And it works. I'm not saying it's just that there's more ways than one.
Well, there's many ways to do it, but at the end of the day, owning a tangible asset such as real estate, and even though the real estate market goes in its cycles up and down or whatever, as long as you're hanging on it, and if at all possible, hang on to your rentals as long as you can, because you don't really need to cash out till later. You've got a career, you've got your job, you're making your money, and if you're living within your means, money's just growing that you will be able to enjoy it, and you don't have to wait until you're 70 years old or something, right? Unfortunately, people think retirement's an age. I have a questionnaire that I ask, especially the youth. Hey, what age is retirement? And it's an outstanding 95% of people put an age on it. They usually say 65 because that's when you can collect Social Security, right? And so they think that's when retirement is. But the reality is retirement is when you're financially independent. And I like to use Mark Zuckerberg as an example. Like, that kid became at 24 years old a billionaire because he developed Facebook and it took off, right? But is he going to retire at 24? No, he's young. He had a passion to build this company, Facebook, of what it is today. And so it wasn't about that. It wasn't even for him about the money, so to speak. He just loved to do what he was doing. You've got people like a Warren Buffett, multi-billionaire, Bill Gates, Tony Robbins, all these people that still do their passions, right? Elon Musk. They're just playing what I like to call the game at a higher level. And so they don't look at life as, hey, when do I have to stop working? I say when we work on our terms, you're pretty much you can use that word retirement at that point. And it's not an age. It could happen for you in the next 10 years.
Yeah, but on the reverse, I think that a lot of people, I don't know, they use that term, they want to live their best life way before they're ready to be living their best life. Like, you do have to have some kind of a foundation before you start to travel the world. And,
yes.
I mean, you can, but that's a safe way to stay broke, not living within your means and trying to do too much before you build some kind of a foundation.
Yeah, to have a foundation is great. I mean, the ones that live that type of lifestyle, and don't really never understand money are the people we will see that are 65 plus years old working at Walmart or Target or even a fast food joints. And we see it every single day. You can go to any one of those places and you can see a senior.
They have to work.
They have to work, right? And again, I think when at your age or younger, your goal should be that, like, I don't want to have to work. I want to work because I want to work, because I'm following whatever passion your passion may be, whatever it is that you love to do, that you don't have to. It's sad, but it just comes down to why I love teaching financial literacy, that the rules of the game are not difficult, but once you learn them and implement them, you will live a very fruitful life. But like we started earlier, did mom and dad teach you? No, your mom and dad, to me, taught you, as I look back now, taught you first lesson, which is probably one of the better lessons, is work ethic, right? So you've got a fantastic work ethic versus the story of the 13-year-old. She probably doesn't have a great work ethic at this point in time, right? She just believes all the nice things just come to her, right? So that was really strong. And then it took you a while, actually, to learn about money and how to treat it. And at this point, I'm hoping that if you learned anything today is, I need to learn how to make my money make money. Because there's nothing more powerful. Make money. That should be all of our goals. So when I get my money, what can I do with it besides go buy whatever? I need to put it to work. Where can I put it to work where it's going to give me a good return? Because it doesn't take a long time. If you do that, I believe you can do it in 10 years, that you can, if you just, and I hate to use the word sacrifice, but if you sacrifice all of these daily little, wants, that you could still live a good life and live on your own terms.
Well, it's also a lot of these things that we want and that we buy, they're more or less a distractor. I don't know, like I love buying clothes. That's what I like to buy, shoes and clothes. But I wear it once because it looks cute, and then I throw it away or I put it in the closet and I never use it. I like to go out to eat, which half of the places that I go out to eat, I could have just cooked the food at home and I would have enjoyed it better because I like the way I cook. Most of the things that we buy are a distractor, and really they are a way of throwing away your money, because as soon as you spend it, it's gone. When you invest in real estate or in other forms of investments, that money actually does something down the line.
Right.
So I don't know. I kind of think of it in my very simplistic way. I almost think that anything that's not real estate doesn't really. There's no reason to spend it. I have to spend it, and sometimes I need a distractor. I need something to make me feel good. But it's just that. It's just a distractor to make you feel good because you can't sit and work all day. That's it. But it is. I'm fully aware of the fact that most of the things that I spend my money on is just a way of throwing it away.
Let me ask you.
The car, obviously, to get to work.
Right. You've got to buy there's certain necessities in life that we definitely need. And, you live in a city like this, you have to have an automobile. If you live in Chicago or New York City, you don't have to have an automobile because, you can transit.
But even the car, it's a very basic car. There's nothing, I'd like to have a fancy car, but my little Toyota gets me here and there just fine. You know what I mean?
Do you think, I want to share with the audience because, again, days just start rolling off so fast, and then you just start spending money subconsciously. Like you said, I want to go out to eat, or I want to buy a new, outfit or a top or whatever. I think now in today's world, we have these tools at our disposal, and a lot of them are free, like these apps that we can put on our phone to track our spending. Right. Well, Amazon is a spender, but so more importantly, I want to turn people on to there's apps on the phone that you can download, like Mint. Mint is great. There's a bunch of them out there where you can track your spending, because if you could literally watch your money, right? You go do what you do for the next 30 days with your money. Look at it on Mint or one of these other apps that are out there, and you look back and you're like, man, I spent 17% of my money on going out and eating food. Maybe I should cut that back down to 10%, right? And if you did that with your eating or your clothing or any of these other things where you can find an extra $300 to $400 or $500 a month to put away in a vehicle that's, where your money's making money, trust me when I tell you, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years go by, and if you stay on that course, you're going to look back and say, all of a sudden, you'll be like, man, I got 6 figures. How did I do that?
You made me think of something like the apps that you choose. Like you saw my automatic reaction was thinking of the Amazon app. You get to choose what app you put on your phone. You can put the Amazon app and spend money. You can put Poshmark. You can put any of those places where you can buy stuff as an app on your phone, or you can choose to put Mint to help you save. So even those little decisions that you think are frivolous, they're not. Those little decisions make a difference on your phone. And we spend tons of time on our phone.
Tons,
so
yeah.
You're going to either look at Mint or you're going to look at the Amazon.
Mint, Amazon, people spend so much time looking at social media. And again, if you get these are just habits, right? You just have to, and nowadays, like let's just say, I'll just an example. Let's say you go down to Starbucks to get yourself your morning coffee or whatever. You get to Starbucks, you order your coffee, and then you go to pay. And now today we can pay with just our phones, just showing it to the deal. You don't even have to give cash or a credit card, right? Our phones could do it. Now, you could set it up where it automatically goes into Mint. You don't even have to manually plug this information in anymore. It just automatically connects. And trust me when I tell you, if you watch it, if you look at it at the end of 30 days, then 60, then 90, and see your patterns and change your spending habits, people, change your spending habits. If you're struggling with money, that you're working check to check, you're barely ahead, you're not broke, but you don't have 6 months worth of your bills put away, this is where it has to start. And leverage technology, because this wasn't around 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 plus years ago, where you had to be a lot more diligent, write all this down, go back. It took so much more time. Where now it's not really taking a lot of your time to track what you're doing, to be able to make the adjustments to keep yourself in a better financial position. Like you just said, okay, I'm driving a Toyota. It's nice, but your Toyota's not going to go forever, right? You know that you got to change your car at least every 6 to 8 years because it just has too many miles. It's like, now this thing's costing me more in repairs than it's worth. I got to go get a new car. And then boom, you go get yourself in a little bit of debt for a vehicle. Okay, need it, whatever. But if you had been tracking and saving money, it's not a big pinch.
You have 8 years to save for the next car.
For the next car, and that financial burden doesn't hit you as strong. Just like if you were financially secure and you had that 6 months put away, if for whatever reason your job is gone, you don't go home and freak out. You don't freak out.
Exactly.
And you don't just start leveraging credit cards to stay alive and buy groceries and everything. And now you're in a bigger hurt because not only did you lose your job, 30 days later, you're $2,000 more in debt. You're like, now what do I do? And for, if that scenario happens and you're 2,000 in debt and then you get your new job, it's literally going to take you 12 to 18 months to pay that $2,000 off just because you were out of work for 30 days. Right? So the importance of putting money away little by little will accumulate, will compound, and do those things. Wow. I think you're on a great path. I think, we just met here today on this talk. And tell me, my final question always is, what financial advice would you tell your 18-year-old self? What you know now today?
Oh, save. That was the part that I was missing. Save.
So
there's a value to saving. I didn't get it at that point. I was like, why would anybody want to have money saved? Because life happens and you need to be prepared for the unexpected.
Saving is a great advice. I always like to say save for a purpose. Don't just don't save money just to save money, right? We need to save it in certain vehicles. And at 18, you can open up, your self-directed Roth IRA. There's so many different places that you can put money that if God forbid, whatever happens in your life, you're like, oh, I need $1,000 or $10,000 or whatever. Like over time, you've put that money away. So you recognize now that you would tell yourself, your 18-year-old self, save your money. How many 18-year-olds do you believe save money?
None. I mean, if they were like me, none.
No, they don't save it, right? Because they don't think about that. Because nobody sat them down and trained them. Awesome. Well, Anabel.
I went through college and nobody told me. I mean, it's not like the education system. And I know, like I said, I'm a teacher. I never talk about that.
Yeah, no, I've talked to everybody in every possible trade, from attorneys, doctors, lawyers, accountants, and nobody ever thinks about money on the level of, I need to stop trading time for it. I need to make my money make money.
Right.
It's such an important lesson to learn. That's why I love teaching it. And again, I appreciate you coming out today and sharing your story. And I believe that we gave some good feedback where even this last one, save your money, guys. Save your money, but save it for a purpose, meaning put it in vehicles, what it's doing, and you can follow it. Last for me, I always say, just be careful. Wants and needs.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Anabel, thank you again very much. So guys, if you love this episode and you want to hear more, my podcast comes out every Wednesday, 7 a.m. It's also on my YouTube channel, Money Conversations with KJ. So go over there and you can check out Anabel's story. And we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.